was speaking to another perfume house, and they were saying one of the ways to identify a niche brand is to see their distribution. If they're launching a new perfume and in 2 months it's on the gray market for 40% off, that means that product was mass produced. It is not a niche brand. Now, with that said, that made me go into the gray market and just start researching it. Websites like Joe My Shop and Fragrance Net. What do you think of that whole aspect? Like, what does that mean to Ormonde Jayne? How do you keep off of it, or is it legitimate? Like, can you tell us about that?
It's a complete nuisance. It really is. So what tends to happen, we don't like to put, we don't have that many distributors in Europe, because I have a group of European managers that work for Ormonde Jayne. But there are people, let's say, for example, they've just bought maybe £30,000 worth of Ormonde Jayne products, and they've bought some other products from different companies to put into their boutique. And maybe everything's not selling as fast as they want, and they've got a cash flow problem. Then some unscrupulous retailers, not necessarily the distributor gets it for this much money, and I sell it to them for this much money. They sell it to the retailer for that much money, and the retailer sells it to the general public for that much money. So there's not a lot of meat on the bone for a distributor. Well, a distributor could actually dump it on the grey market, but this is when the batch numbers come in very handy. Because, for example, there's a terrible website called Notino, and they often advertise that they've got Ormonde Jayne, but when you go to buy something, they will say out of stock. So they're just using our name for people to go, oh, and then, you know, like
it's a clickbait, yeah.
They're using our name as a hook to get them onto your site, but quite often they don't hold any stock. I could spend all my life trying to take it down, but I'd be going around in circles because they'd put it back up the next day. And the reason for that is because they're in the European Union. And the European Union law says that if I sell into the European Union, which I do, into little tiny independent boutiques across Italy and France and Spain, then I cannot disallow a European company to sell my product on their website. So it's a real problem, because but the only way I can get around it is to say, you're not representative of my brand. My brand should be represented like this, and that is not it. So therefore, you have to take it down. You're in breach. Now, the European Union will agree with me and say, yes, she's right. That's not how you present Ormonde Jayne. And they take it down, but then they just put it back up again. Right. And it's annoying. And they hadn't actually even got any stock, which is even worse. So the other thing that we do is, if, let's say, we've supplied somebody and somebody else, let's say in another territory, let's say in the Baltics, phones me up and says, somebody's selling your product in my area. This is my area. I'm under contract with you, and I've got these 3 countries, because I don't do the Balkans and the Baltics myself. I have a really nice lady called Lana. She has about 25 nice little tiny boutiques all around the Baltics and Balkans. So she'll say, I don't supply that boutique there. They're selling Ormonde Jayne. This is my territory. So she knows the protocol now. So she goes in and she either photographs the batch code, or she buys one, and then she just sends me the sleeve where the batch code is, and she keeps it for a tester for herself. When I see the batch code, I know whose territory that is, because I can look it up on my portal. So I might have sold it to a company in, let's say, I don't know, maybe Uzbekistan. So she's not a distributor, but she has 3 very nice boutiques, and they're very beautiful. Then what I do is then I phone her up in a very nice way, and I say, I have no idea how this has happened, but it looks like some of the products that were under the batch code going to you have ended up in the Balkans, and that's not your territory. How do you think that might have happened? So I kind of give her but the thing is if I warn them more than, let's say, 2 or 3 times, I actually then I'm a bit more blunt, And I'll say, you do understand that if this happens again, you're in breach of your contract and we won't be supplying you anymore. So last year we got rid of 5 quite good companies, but they kept running foul on dumping stuff on the Dubai market or the Chinese market. Not loads of stock, but still they're not meant to do that. And then we found out who they were very easily. And then we told them off, but they kept being like repeat offenders. So then we said, we're going to cancel your contract. We're not sending you any more product. Then they get really like remorseful. And it's like, we don't know how this happened. You know, somebody was working in the company, they've been fired and they just come up with some story. But we say, no, it's finished now. We're going to find somebody else. So you have to do your housekeeping on a regular basis, and you have to have a clean sweep of what's where. And it's a bit of a nuisance, to be perfectly honest. We have got it under control.